Well, now that Magiccon is over, I need to make do on something that I really wanted to do, and that was take one of the welcome decks that I picked up from the con and turn it into a functional Magic the Gathering commander deck, and I wanted to take one of the commanders that people were clowning on and use that as the base. So, let's go ahead and see what we got. I remember seeing Venom Eddie Brock just being clowned on online because it's just really not the greatest of commanders, and I can completely understand where people are coming from. It's got a very restrictive draw ability, and it's got the 1/1 counter ability that we previously saw on Sephiroth, so this is just a copy-paste of a previous commander, and not a good one at that. But you know what? That is exactly why I love him. So, sometimes we make mistakes, and sometimes those mistakes are making all fan art canon. So for some reason, all of you decided that a bunch of differently colored doppelgangers of me needed to be the flavor of the month, or the year, or however, and there's just so many of these weird, completely different personalitied, usually causing me trouble, variants of my character to go around. And because I've made the mistake of making all fan art canon, I figure I might as well go ahead and celebrate this latest mistake with all of you. So if you haven't checked out my fourth wall already, there's a new channel playmat in there celebrating all of the madness that is coming from all of you, featuring not only my character, but all of the weird little variants y'all have made over the last few months, including Claudette down there in the lower right-hand corner, just kinda chillin'. If you want to support my channel and what I do, then please consider picking this up, and if you do get a channel playmat, please go ahead and post about it on social media tagging me so we can feature you in a video. Thank you very much, and let's get back to the regular video. Venom Eddie Brock is a whopping 6 mana commander with Menace, 6 power, 4 toughness, and the ability to draw us a card if ever a villain dies. It also gets a 1/1 counter regardless of how a creature dies if it sees a creature die. Now, this automatically makes me want to build a deck that leans super hard into the Voltron aspect of it, but I'm gonna be honest, I think that could end up being a little boring, and space is gonna be very tight because we are going to be needing to run this as a villain tribal deck. And I'm gonna be honest, there just aren't that many good villains in Magic the Gathering. Not that villains like Sazdek and Nicol Bolas are not good villains, they just don't have the villain typing, because for some reason, Venom, who should have been operating with the outlaw mechanic, is instead operating with the new villain mechanic that will receive, like, basically zero support ever, outside of getting a bunch of new Marvel sets. I'm not super thrilled about that, but we do have some ways to try to work around this limitation. We can run a Maskwood Nexus and a Conspiracy and try to make more of our creatures villains so that it's easier for us to draw cards with Venom specifically. And I think we also need to lean very heavily into the dies abilities of the deck, so let's have a pretty substantial reanimation package with targets like Grave Titan and Sepulchre Primordial being what we are going to be trying to fart out of our deck. If we want to see lots of things die, sometimes we're gonna have to kill our own shit, so we need lots of ways to bring it back. And in order to facilitate that, we've got Vat of Rebirth, and yeah, the one guy who says Vat of Rebirth mentioned is going to be in the comment section. I hope you're happy. But this lets us reanimate a creature over and over again, as does Coffin Queen, a card I recently discovered. Chthonian Nightmare also does the same thing, and I think it's about here where I need to mention why this deck is being built the way that it is. We do not have the ability to build this deck and make it good on a super tight budget, so we are instead going to be running with the rule that every card in the deck needs to be $2 or less. So this is the most expensive reanimation spell we have. Body Launderer lets us connive and also has a reanimation ability built in when he dies. Coiling Rebirth reanimates a creature and then clones it. Victimize and Ever After both reanimate 2 creatures. Dread Return reanimates 1 creature and then another one later in the game. Then we have Stitch Together, which reanimates a creature in the mid-game, and Grimoire of the Dead, which lets me discard cards in order to get them in the library ready to reanimate, and then, of course, well, graveyard to reanimate, and then, of course, allows us to reanimate all the creatures in all the graveyards as a quick and dirty win condition. Speaking of dirty, we then have the villains section of the deck, and truncating all of the terrible and bad villains out of here means we are left with only 13 villains, and even some of these are not that great on their own, but they do have some interesting tech abilities that I want access to. So let's go ahead and go through them. Common Crook has a Die's ability to make us a treasure token. Grave Shifter gives us access to our graveyard while being a villain. Tombstone can yank villains out of our graveyard. Scorpion has Death Touch and the ability to connive, putting things in the graveyard for us to reanimate. Venomous Changeling is a wonderful blocker along with Grendel and Venomized Cat. They're all basically here solely because they have Death Touch. The Inner Demons Gangster allows us to discard cards to give things menace, which can be super helpful later in the game. Mechanical Mobster lets us get rid of problematic cards in a graveyard in order to connive. Venom Evil Unleashed is honestly, it's here because it was included in the welcome deck. I'm not even gonna lie, but it's got Death Touch, and we can pay 4 mana to exile a card from our graveyard to put 2/1/1 counters on a creature and then give it Death Touch until end of turn. This is, again, mostly here because it came in the precon. I do not think this is a fantastic card in its own right, but I think that it's one of the first common legendary creatures we've ever had. I'm fairly certain that's a common. Anyway, we have Changeling Outcast, which is unblockable, which does have some synergies with Venom Evil Unleashed. Then we have Black Cat Cunning Thief, which allows us to steal cards from our opponent's libraries. And of course, Symbiote Spawn, which has a Dies trigger to burn everybody for 2 and give us 2 life. It is here for only one reason. It is a symbiote, it is thematic, and it is a villain. Otherwise, if I were building any other deck, this card would not make its way in because we are working on restrictions right now. And for protection, we're going to run a Swiftfoot Boots and Whisper Silk Cloak combo in order to give our commander protection and, well, for Whisper Silk Cloak, just the ability to not be blocked, which is massive in a deck that's WinCon is going to be pseudo Voltron. But that's it for everything in the main strategy. Let's go ahead and move on to greener pastures. Now, obviously, when villains die, we are going to be drawing cards, so our commander is going to be a significant source of draw power for us in the mid-game, but we do need other ways to draw, and for that, we are running a pretty hefty 10-card draw package. I say hefty because usually when you got a commander who can draw, it's a little smaller than that, but our commander costs 6 mana, so I can't really rely on anything like that. But let's go ahead and see what we got here. We've got Dire Sight and Risky Research, which are both the same card. They allow us to surveil 2, then draw 2 cards. It's just a strictly better version of Read the Bones. Then we have Mask of Memory and Zephyr Boots, which both allow us to draw and discard cards as creatures are swinging. We then have Matsulani the Great Door, which gives us a looting effect and a huge ramp effect later in the game. Phyrexian Arena to give us some pretty consistent draw. Braids to kill our own villains while also drawing us cards. Agent Venom, which allows us to draw cards whenever non-token creatures we have dies. Morbid Opportunist, which draws us cards whenever any creature dies. And Deadly Dispute, which allows us to sacrifice creatures to draw some beautiful cardboard into our hands. And that does it for everything in the draw package. This should be enough to let us sift through our deck and get what we need, but let's go ahead and talk about getting rid of our opponent's cards so that we don't have to rely on everything in our deck. Sometimes psychic damage will do. So remember that in a game of Magic the Gathering, removal prevents your opponents from winning the game. Also remember that in our specific game of Magic the Gathering, our commander will get a 1/1 counter every time a creature dies. As a result, if we just chalk our deck filled, I mean absolutely filled with cards like Accursed Marauder, Plague Crafter, Demon's Disciple, by Gaius von Balzar, we'll be able to make our opponent sacrifice a lot of creatures and then have creatures of our own to harm our opponents with. Eldest Reborn makes our opponents each sacrifice creatures as well, and it even has a reanimate attached to the end. Vile Mutilator and Dusk Mangler both make our opponents lose 6 cards worth of value, while also giving our commander all kinds of goodies. Then we have Feed the Swarm to get rid of creatures or enchantments, Venom's Hunger solely because it is thematic and it is a murder that was included in the pre-con that I picked up, so this is going to be in here regardless of upgrades as far as I'm concerned. Then, because we actually have the ability to put MDFCs in this deck, because I'm not running with the usual budgetary restriction of $20 or less, we have Pelika Predation, a lovely card that can get rid of a card in our opponent's hands if need be, while also being a wonderful land if need be. MDFCs are fantastic. Boggart Trawler, which can get rid of graveyards while also being a land, and Hagra Mauling, which can get rid of creatures while also being a land. Then we have the board wipes in the deck, which are very, very powerful. We have Archfiend of Depravity, which will allow us to truncate our opponent's boards down to exactly enough creatures to block Venom and not one creature more. Necromantic Selection to blow up all creatures and then of course get Venom back. And then Massacre Girl, who has some very interesting collaboration opportunities with Venom. You see, Venom says if another creature dies, put a 1/1 counter on him. And Massacre Girl says when another creature dies, give all creatures -1/-1. Now, usually, Massacre Girl wipes the entire board so long as she has a couple of little creatures to start her chain, but she will never, and I repeat, never be able to kill Venom, because every time she gets another trigger to put a -/- out onto the board, Venom will put a 1/1 counter on himself. Massacre Girl is a one-sided board wipe if your goal is to keep Venom on the board, and that is absolutely stupid, but it is the way the rules work, so here we are. For Ramp and Mana, we're running 38 lands and 10 pieces of ramp, with our 2 mana rocks being Arcane Signet and Mind Stone and Thought Vessel. After that, we have some rocks that are doing a little more heavy lifting. Hedron Archive, Stone Speaker Crystal, and Worn Power Stone can all tap for 2 mana, and Thran Dynamo can tap for 3 mana. Then we have the Wayfarer's Bauble and Solemn Simulacrum combo that every deck that is in colors that are not green can use to get basic lands out of the deck, and of course Honored Heirloom so that we have a rock that can get rid of problematic cards in our opponent's graveyard so that we don't end up dying to our own removal strategy. After that, we're running 22 basic swamps with 13 utility lands. Spymaster's Vault is only $1 and it allows us to make creatures connive. Bonder's Enclave can draw us cards so long as we have big enough creatures. Diorite Sanitarium can draw us cards as well. High Market can sack our villains in order to power up Venom and draw us cards. Rogue's Passage makes Venom able to punch in super easy. Myriad Landscape allows us to ramp, and then we have Hidden Grotto, Capital City, Conduit Pylons, and Gallifrey and Gallifrey. All of these allow us to surveil when they come onto the battlefield, and then they get to be just basic lands after that. Then we have Polluted Mire, Desert of the Glorified, and Barren Moor, all lands that can be cycled out of our hand in case we happen to be mana flooded. And that does it for everything in the main deck. Let's go ahead and talk about how to play this thing because, oh boy, this guy's kind of rough. Alrighty, let's see what we have in this opening hand. A Thought Vessel, 2 Swamps, Agent Venom to draw cards, Venomized Cat, and Gallifrey so that we can get our cards a little easier with that Surveil trigger. I'm actually okay with this hand. Let's see what we can do with it. Drawing for our opening turn, let's go ahead and play the Conduit Pylons so that we can surveil the top of our deck. It's Venom's Hunger. We could end up using this to protect ourselves from any would-be assailants, so let's go go ahead and keep that on top. Going into our next turn, let's go ahead and play Gallifrey's To Surveil once more. That's a swamp on top. We do want that swamp to be able to play Venom, so let's keep that there. Tap 2, play Thought Vessel, and then pass to our opponents. Moving into the next turn, we get to play that swamp. Tap 1, 2, 3, and I think what we need to be doing right now is getting the symbiote spawn out. Nah, we'll do Venomized Cat. It's a blocker that can mill 2 cards away for us. I would have liked to keep that Deadly Dispute, but it's okay. It's also a villain that we can use Venom's Hunger with, so we'll run with that. Moving into the next turn, we have a Mozzolante, so now we have a choice here. We can either use Venom's Hunger to disrupt one of our opponents, or we can play Mozzolante to sculpt our next draws. I feel like Mozzolante's the more important card, just because sculpting our draws is super important in a deck like this. We get an Honored Heirloom, but I don't think we need the Honored Heirloom right now. I think I'm willing to go ahead and toss that away, as we've got a swamp in our hand. So let's move on to turn 5. We play a swamp. Let's go ahead and tap everything out, and then get Venom out on the board. Now, if anybody attacks us, we'll block with the Venomized Cat and use it to kill anything that our opponents have. That way, people are not going to be likely to do anything to us. We're also going to tap Mozzolante to draw a card, and it's a swamp, so we can go ahead and get rid of that. We don't need that again. We go ahead and draw for the next turn, and we get a Hedron Archive. So let's go ahead and play that, and then tap 1, 2, 3. Let's use Venom's Hunger to punk away one of our opponent's cards. And now that we've done that, let's just start swinging Venom at people. Every time Venom swings, he's going to keep getting 1/1 counters, so we know that he's already gained 1 counter. At this stage of the game, I don't know if people are going to be likely to block him, but I'm willing to just start swinging him willy-nilly at our opponents. Let's also see here, we haven't played a land for the turn, so let's go ahead and play that land. Let's tap Mozzolante to draw. It's a Victimize. I am willing to go ahead and throw away the Symbiote spawn and keep that Victimize in our hand, because when we move to the next turn, we have 2 creatures in grave, right? At the very least. No, we do not have 2 creatures in the grave yet, so we need to get another creature into the grave. So we're going to tap Mozzolante to draw a card, and then that is going to discard this Grave Shifter away. We can then play the Capital City. Yeah, we need a land for turn, so we'll play Capital City, and then we'll pay 1, 2, 3. And we'll get Agent Venom out. Then we'll pay 1, 2, 3, and we will Victimize, getting rid of the Venomized Cat and summoning the Grave Shifter and the Symbiote spawn. Venomized Cat was a villain, so we are going to be drawing a card for regular Venom, getting a counter, and then of course, because we got rid of a creature with Agent Venom out, we are also going to draw another card, giving us access to a high market we can use on a subsequent turn. And we have a Symbiote spawn that we can throw away for other things later. Let's go ahead and swing Venom at somebody again. They're going to be forced to block at this point because commander damage is going to start getting silly. So Venom is currently sitting at 10-8, which is really, really good. We don't have enough mana to play Conspiracy, so let's move on to the next turn. We draw an Ever After, which will be very helpful here in a minute. Let's go ahead and play this high market, tap it, and oh right, Grave Shifter put Venomized Cat in our hand when it came out. So we can go ahead and play this high market, pay 1, 2, 3, play Venomized Cat, tap the high market, kill the Symbiote spawn, drawing us 2 cards, putting a counter on Venom, and then that gives us the Inner Demon Gangsters. Not super necessary for us right now. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's tap Mozzolante. And let's draw a card. We draw Body Launderer. Let's go ahead and discard that. And then pay 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And let's, I mean, I guess we can get Mind Stone out in that too. That technically works out. And then let's play Ever After. Ever After is going to reanimate both the Body Launderer and the Symbiote spawn. And then it's going to get shuffled back into our deck. And now we've got a pretty powerful board state. If any creature we have dies, we get to Connive. We have High Market available, and we can use that if need be. Symbiote spawn is back out. If any of our things dies, we'll draw 2 cards. We can keep on swinging with Venom. Somebody's going to have to block again. Now he's sitting pretty high in terms of power. Everything on our board is thankfully a villain, so we don't need to play Conspiracy yet. So on the next turn, Ooh, Chthonian Nightmare. We can use this to start cycling things away. So let's tap High Market, and let's get rid of a villain. The villain we're going to get rid of is going to be the Symbiote Spawn. That draws us 2 cards and puts a counter on Venom. Then, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's play Conspiracy, and then let's pay 1, 2. Accursed Marauder. This is a villain, so it'll draw us 2 cards when it dies, and it'll get rid of a creature from each of our opponent's boards. Again, and then Venom sees 1, 2, 3, 4 creatures die, so that's perfect. And because we have that in the grave, now we can go ahead and play Chthonian Nightmare, which allows us to sacrifice the Venomized Cat in order to resummon the Accursed Marauder, putting the Chthonian Nightmare back into our hand. Sacrificing the cat gets a counter on Venom, draws us 2 cards. The Accursed Marauder dies, drawing us 2 cards because Conspiracy made it a villain. And then, now that we have the Chthonian Nightmare, we can loop the Accursed Marauder over and over again. And by the way, Venom is swinging right now for 21 damage. If somebody doesn't have 2 blockers right now, Venom is swinging at a player and knocking them out of the game. They are dead. Like, their time in this game is now officially over. And when our turn comes up again, we can use the Chthonian Nightmare to revive the body, to sack the Body Launderer, to summon the Accursed Marauder, to then use the Chthonian Nightmare to summon the Body Launderer again, because he will be in the range of how much energy the Chthonian Nightmare gives us. We have a Phyrexian Arena and a Braids in our hand in case things go sideways, and we just have a ton of stuff in our hand that'll help us out. If a player on the board is running a combo deck, we have Pelika in order to get rid of any of the combo pieces they may have in their hand. I'm going to be honest, the deck is slow, but I'm actually really impressed with how this ran. That makes me feel good, warm, and fuzzy inside. If you're looking to upgrade this deck, Masamune, wow, it dropped down under $1. That is insane. Anyway, Masamune would work really well here as it doubles Venom's triggers and of course makes it to where it has first strike. I would also put in a Massacre Worm as one of the board wipes so that you can get a lot of death triggers all at once for Venom. Skull Clamp would be a great draw power spell for the deck as well. Phyrexian Reclamation can put our villains back in our hand for recycling. Liliana doubles up our draws. Susur Secundi doubles up our draws as well, giving us a land that can sack things for us. And I'm reminded that I need to put this into my Sephiroth deck because this is just a super powerful ability. Mandate of Abaddon's another fantastic board wipe that really needs to be in this deck if you are playing it. Fel the Profane is an MDFC you should be running in every black deck along with Malakir Rebirth. Same thing, same argument. Reanimate and Whip of Erebos give you access to your graveyard in efficient and super powerful ways. Toxic Deluge is a board wipe that we can avoid killing Venom with. Black Market Connection makes villains and also draws us lots of cards. Sheoldred can trigger Venom a ton while also reanimating our powerful creatures. Phyrexian Towers, another land that can sack things for us as we need, and Grave Pact and Dictate of Erebos and Butcher of Malakir can all be added to this deck in order to have a ridiculous amount of deaths triggered by our shenanigans. And, well, that does it for everything in the deck. With all that said, thank you for watching, and if you haven't checked out the channel sponsor, Mana Pool already, please consider doing so. I have a link in the description, and if you have not used Mana Pool before, if you use that link, then you will actually get $5 off of your first purchase. So please consider checking that out. It helps my channel out a ton, and thank you so much not only to you for watching the video, but Mana Pool for sponsoring my channel. I appreciate it greatly, and I hope to see you all in the next video.